feature. Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
I'm Ben, and this is Kelpful Tips. Hey, I'm Ben with Kelpy Surf, also known as the professional dinger. I just dinged my board this morning, so I'm going to show you how to quickly do a simple ding repair. It's a really small one on the rail. It doesn't require a whole lot of tools. It's not as hard as you might think it is. I'm going to do a little bit of color matching, and I'm just going to walk you through it so you can do it on your own boards. All right, so the supplies you're going to need. First is a respirator. You want to make sure that you're keeping your lungs nice and safe. This stuff is disgusting to breathe in, so while you're sanding, using that resin, make sure you wear a nice respirator. Disposable gloves. This stuff sucks to get on your hands. It's hard to get off, so get some gloves. Ding all repair kit. I do a lot of repairs with these guys. You can buy the actual stuff individually, but this comes with everything you need. We've got glass, we've got some sandpaper, you got these rad stickers, and you've got the resin right in there. So this has pretty much everything I need. Make sure you get the right type for your board. So this is a polyester board, so I got the polyester kit. Cures in the sun. Masking tape. This is just that way you can tape off the area. Make sure you're only working where you want to. You don't have to use this, whatever. Some acrylic paint. I use this to color match my resin. You could use actual tints that they sell, but this is a little easier for me to come by, and I can buy kind of the different colors for my boards, and it seems to work pretty well for me. Really cheap, and you just mix a little bit in there and you can kind of get rolling with that. A pair of scissors, so that way you can cut the glass to the shape that you need. I like to use these super fancy Ginger shears used for fabric, which is expensive and a bad idea. Get your own shears. Pink knife. This is that way you can cut away all the little bits of glass that are broken from before repairing. Sandpaper. I like to use a 2000 wet sandpaper at the very end, and then this is a 120 medium grit. Like I said, they also have some sandpaper right in that little kit, so you don't necessarily need this, just depending on how much you want to spend. Again, not necessary. This is just a little sanding block. My hands are weak little baby hands, so it just makes them less fatigued. Q-cell filler. I'm not actually using this today, but just wanted to show you what it's for. If you have a really big ding with kind of foam that needs to get filled in, you mix a little of this with your resin, and then that helps fill in that space. Finally, the finishing touch, polishing compound. Again, not needed. I'll do a little bit of this, just like, you know, Ferris Bueller's Day Off style, and I'll wipe it with a diaper so that way it gets nice and shiny at the end. This board is kind of a matte finish, so it doesn't work great on it, but it'll get us pretty close to where we need to be. All right, so I've had my board sitting out in the sun just to start drying it. You want to make sure that all the water's gotten out first. We have a little bit of sun, which is helpful. I'm also going to cut away some of this kind of broken glass here, which will help dry it out as well. So that's what I'm going to kind of get into right now. All right, so I feel pretty good about that. Most of this is now pretty solid. You just want to make sure it's not really like flexing. There's a little bit here, but that'll be all right. And I'm just gonna kind of start sanding around this space once it's fully dry. You can kind of push on the foam to see if there's any water. I can feel a little bit of moisture there, so I'm gonna let it dry in the sun for a little bit longer before I get going on the rest of the repair.
Respirator. Sorry if you can't hear me that well. You can guess why. So I'm just going to take some tape. All right, so I have a little bit of extra crack here, so I just kind of taped a little bit further on this side, and then just enough around so that way I get maybe about a ½ an inch of space around this whole thing. All right, so I'm just gonna take this sanding block now, and I'm just gonna sand around this space. You just wanna rough it up so that way the resin has something to adhere to. So I'm just gonna kind of take this block and go to town a little bit. I have a old t-shirt that I've taken, and I just kind of use it for random things like wiping this off and kind of cleaning it. It's a great repurpose of something that was gonna kind of go away. All right, so you can see how I've kind of scratched up all around here and cleaned up some of this edge the best I could, and you can kind of see it's ready to go for the next step here. All right, so this is everything that kind of came in that kit, and then again my little bit of paint here that I'm going to mix in. So I'm going to take some of this cloth, because of this hole I cut so much out. I'm going to add some glass on top, and that's just going to strengthen the rail here and kind of give us a nice hard surface to work on. If you're wrapping over a corner, especially around the nose or something, it's good to actually cut it on a bias, so like at an angle, because this actually wraps, it stretches better this way than it does this way, and so you actually get a little bit cleaner wrap around the corners and things. Because this is such a flat rail, I'm just going to go with that. So I'm just going to kind of line it up, and I'm going to shoot for maybe a ½ inch around this hole, and I'm actually going to cut a second one to go about ½ inch bigger than that one, so you'll kind of see here. And the goal of this is, again, just to cover that hole, and so there's kind of my first piece that I'm going to do. That covers most of that. I'm going to clean some of this up, just nice and easy to work with. And then I'm going to lay this other piece on top, and I'm just going to make sure this one's a little bit bigger so we've got some overlap. I probably overdo a lot of this most of the time, so you can always go a little bit less. If it's a smaller ding, you might not need any glass. If it's a little bit bigger, sometimes you can go with 3 sheets if you really want. You know, a lot of these boards are 2 and 1 layer, so this is probably, like I said, overkill, and you've got some overlapping here. So now we've got both of those, and that's going to cover my space, and you can see I've got room to work around this, so this tape might be a little close, and I can kind of peel it back. And then we're ready to go. You want to make sure you got all of this ready to go before you start working with the resin. Even the little bit of light that I have here in the garage, it's going to leak in and start to harden this a tiny bit. And so we want to have everything ready to go. Alright, so get your gloves on because this stuff is messy. I also grabbed a pot. You can grab a box or whatever you want. Again, I'm going to use this resin twice, and I want it to stay hard, soft and usable. So I'm just going to cover it when I'm done, so that way it stays nice and shaded when I open up my garage. And then it'll be ready to go for the second round when I do my little hot coat. So we're just going to take some of this sun cure, and for something about this size I don't need a ton in here, but I'm just going to pour it out into this little guy. About that much is probably more than enough. Seal that back up. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this. I really just want like 1 little drop probably. A little bit in there. And I'm going to use this little mixing guy, kind of mix it up. If it doesn't get exactly the color you want, you can add a tiny bit more, but really you don't probably want to add too much. So that looks pretty good to me. It's going to be a little bit different shade, but I'm okay with that. It'll change as you kind of work with it as it dries in the sun. So now I'm just going to, where it gets a little bit messy, I'm going to add just a little bit to this cloth here, just to kind of get it wet. And then I'm going to plop some of this into this hole just to kind of get it all started. And then I'm going to kind of lay this first piece right over that. Right there. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of this on top. Kind of start spreading it around and making sure you're getting plenty of resin over the whole cloth so it gets saturated and around the bottom. And just make sure you're covering all the edges of that glass, kind of laying it as smooth as possible. I'm just going to cover up this bit of resin that I had with this pot. So it's good to go. And now we're going to carry this outside to the sun and let it kind of start to harden. Since it's a UV cure, should be about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll be right back in here. Alright, so we're just going to go back to town with this kind of sanding and get it back flush again. Alright, so I still have, after sanding that, I still have a little bit of indent here. I was hoping I could get a little bit more resin underneath the cloth, but that's alright. I kind of sanded it flat. I've got this clear piece of kind of plastic that they give with that kit, and I'm just going to lay a little bit more resin underneath there, kind of smash it down with this, and then fill that hole before I add that last layer of glass, and then the kind of like hot coat. So we're just going to do that real quick. And tape this kind of on there so I can flip it up. So I'm going to grab that resin that I already mixed up, and I'm just going to pour a little bit into there. And again, the goal is to kind of fill this gap so that way it's a nice smooth rail again. And squeeze that back up into that hole. Kind of fill like that. Take a little piece of tape here. You don't want to really squeeze it out, but you definitely want it to kind of, the flatter you can get it, the less work you're going to have to do. There. And so now you can kind of see I have this kind of filled in void. This lets the UV light come through and still harden it. And hopefully we'll just be able to sand that, move on to the last piece of glass and that last step. Alright, so we've done both sides now. So I'm just going to kind of peel this up. You'll see it peels off really nice and easy, and you can still reuse this for your next round. And you can see we've got a pretty smooth surface to work with now. Nice and smooth now. The goal is to make it watertight, make it strong again, and then keep the original shape as best you can of the rail for those sick bottom turns, obviously. So I'm just going to sand this down again, get it kind of roughed up so we can do that last layer there. So that last step before I sanded it, if you have a high gloss board or something, and you are out and about and you just wanted to get back in the water, at that point you're watertight, you're have a nice smooth clean rail, and you could get back in the water no problem. Obviously this is kind of a long-term fix for me, so I'm just going to do these last two steps, and we've just kind of roughed it up. It looks good to go, so I'm going to do this last piece of glass that we cut, get over that whole rail, and then we'll bake it one more time, sand it one last time, and then we'll kind of finish it up. So again, just make sure you don't have any of that resin on any of the good parts of your board before you take it back outside. It wipes up nice and easy right now, but it'll harden, and then you have to try and get rid of it on the parts that don't need it. Alright, so I'm going to actually peel all this away real quick. Just that way I can kind of get to all of it, and then I'll end up putting one more layer of tape on before I do the last bit. Oh look, a ladybug. Oh, you should go away. I don't have anywhere for you to go. You should go to a safer spot. Fly.
Ice cream truck.
Ice cream.
Can we get an ice cream for filming this video?
That sounds like a good idea to me. Alright, so I'm feeling pretty good about that overall. It's nice and smooth. I've clearly covered it with enough glass to be nice and strong. Probably overkill. But now you can see there's a little bit of that texture here. So that last coat that I'm doing is just resin with that same clear plastic sheet over the top. Just to get a nice final clear full coat of resin. I'll do a light sand on that just to smooth it and get it all clear with the deck, and then we'll be ready to go. Alright, so now that's off and it's all hard and ready to go. We're just going to do one last little sand just to smooth all these edges out and create a clean surface. And then do our best just to match this kind of finish of the board here. So, alright, so now I got it nice and smooth, and I'm just going to hit it with this kind of wet 2500 grit sandpaper. Did a pretty good job, I think, with color matching. It's, you know, a little darker, but we could always get a better color next time if we want. But again, it's pretty smooth. The shape of the rail looks pretty good. It's watertight, solid, and you know, I'll probably take a little bit more time kind of buffing this out. You can use a little bit of that polishing compound to get it a little shinier. But overall, super happy with it, and be ready to ride tomorrow morning.